Gota wo nur vada ida sana, baiva meo topa, dea ida amona lene dinenen. Ita mida me bedeve su mana leidia, mai kadiva donsapi rebalepi, dia, tane inamina kasala vadepi. Ion 3:16.
What did we just hear? We'll talk about it. Stay tuned. This is the True Hope Weekly. All right, well, welcome back for another episode of the True Hope Weekly. My name is Garrett Sanchez, and I'm so happy to have a new guest with me here, Roman Royer. Welcome, Roman.
Hi, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, so glad to have you. Roman is a part of our missions board at True Hope, and he's been doing that for about 2 years now. And so tell us a little bit, what is the missions board here at True Hope?
So the missions board is kind of in charge of our interface with missionaries from First Baptist or from True Hope churches. We work on supporting those missionaries financially, praying for them, and keeping in touch with them. We organize mission trips to go visit them when that's appropriate. We look out for special projects that they may have and try to fund those projects. We're constantly looking for new missionaries to support as well, to kind of expand our reach and expand who we're supporting. So there's kind of a variety of things we
and we have members here from downtown, members from Collister, so that you're representative of the downtown campus, which is great. And you've been doing that for a couple of years, but you've actually been here at True Hope Downtown for quite a while.
Yeah, almost 20 years now, 19 years or something like that. So when I first came to Boise. So,
Yep. Well, recently, obviously, it was First Baptist and True Hope, and part of that True Hope is right in our mission statement. And it says this, it says, until our families, our neighbors, our cities, and our world know that Jesus is True Hope. Now, obviously, that's kind of a unique way that we've wanted to state it to support, our name and everything. But it's not a unique calling. It's something that all Christians have been called to ever since Jesus, ascended and gave us the Great Commission. Now, in your life, that's been fulfilled in a pretty interesting way. And so I'd love to kind of hear your history of missions.
Yeah, so actually my parents were missionaries, Bible translators in Papua New Guinea, to a little tribe of people. There's only about 2,000 people that speak that language. And they translated the New Testament for that language group. And I got to grow up being part of that. When my parents first left, we were Austrian originally. When my parents first left Austria, they asked, I was probably 4, so I didn't really know what was going on. My brother was about 6. And they asked him, like, hey, do you think we should go, to Papua New Guinea to tell people about God? And he told them, if we don't go and tell them, like, who's going to go? So at that point, my parents were like, well, it's not much you can say to that. And they were pretty convinced that they needed to go already, but it was cool to see my brother on board as well.
What year was this about?
Mid-80s, 86 or so. And so they spent about 15 years in Papua New Guinea. And
it's a little bit different culture than America.
Very different, exactly. And this is the product of their work. So this is the Ina Sana Gagalawa translation, which I actually prefer to the ESV for Bruce's. But this is what my parents translated the New Testament. It's called the Talk of New Life, which is really the message of hope for them, that they had something bigger to look forward to.
How much tender loving care did it take to produce this?
It was really 15 years of my parents' work, both of them working. I mean, luckily the tribe they worked with was very inclusive, so both women and men could work on the translation. And so my mom could work in an office with some of the women there, and my dad would work in an office. And there's a lot of work, a lot of revisions, initially there was just a lot of language learning,
right?
Developing dictionaries, learning about the grammar and all that. And then, there's a first version, you do a little bit of translating, and then you go back a year later and realize that all the stuff you wrote doesn't, it makes sense, but it just doesn't sound right or whatever. And so there's a lot of revisions, a lot of work that goes into that. So the whole thing was almost 15 years of work, and which is kind of on the shorter side of most translations.
Yeah. And you were there in Papua New Guinea until what age?
Until I graduated high school. So I got there in 2nd grade. And then through the end of high school, I was basically in Papua New Guinea. We go back to Austria every 4 or 5 years for a year. But
So talk about, obviously growing up in that. How did your family be accepted into that culture?
Yeah, it was interesting. So one huge story is kind of impacted my whole life. But the first couple days we were there, the elder, the chieftain kind of the village, and his wife came and talked to my parents, and they'd kind of heard that they knew there was missionaries around and other kind of surrounding tribes and things, so they knew there was something there. They heard a little bit about it, and they came and they painted one side of their face black and one side of their face white, and they said, "Hey, we're living in darkness. We're like animals in the dark. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're doing. But we've heard there's hope. There's a light out there. Can you help us find the light?" And that really kind of kicked things, exactly. And so, and then, I mean, my parents initially, it's hard to know exactly what they mean by that. I mean, you hope they mean what we mean by finding the light, that God is the one who gives us hope and who rescues us, right?
Yeah.
But in a totally different culture and environment, you don't know exactly, are they looking for Western riches, or are they looking for, spiritual life, right? It turned out they were looking for spiritual life, and so, which is what we'd hoped for.
Yeah.
But it was just an amazing start, and there was kind of almost a revival from the first couple of months, kind of broke out among that tribe. A lot of amazing conversion stories and amazing things that God did.
Yeah.
But it was very obvious that they had the same spiritual need that we all do. They knew that what the things they were doing that wasn't fulfilling that need, and that they were really searching for the one true God to fulfill that for them. So
wow, that's amazing. So how has that experience throughout your childhood and seeing the impact of this informed your heart and passion for missions today?
Yeah, so my parents always included us as much as possible in that whole project. So probably when I was in 5th grade, I was teaching some English classes to some of the people there to so we could send them to a local Bible school. We helped a lot of printing. We had one of those old printing press things almost. So my brother and I'd sit there cranking this crank to spit out little C-spot run type books to help literacy work, to teaching people to read and write.
Wow.
A lot of random stuff like that they always wanted to include us as part of the work, and that we were always involved.
Probably needed the help too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then kind of coming out of that, I always felt, right, there's like, it talks about in Romans 10 that there's, how will people believe unless they hear, and how will they hear unless somebody goes and preaches to them, and how is somebody going to preach to them unless somebody sends them? So I feel like there's kind of two, if you're a Christian, you should either be a sender or a preacher, or, a supporter or a missionary. And I'm not necessarily great I'm an engineer, so my social skills are a little on the lower end of the spectrum, but
so you're in that support role.
I'm in the support role, exactly. So I mean, different people have different gifts in different areas, right? And you find but I feel like, you got to find one of those two slots that you can really commit. And ideally, I mean, there's obviously overlap and stuff. It's not 100% on one or the other, but you gotta buy in. And I mean, that's why we're here, really, to spread the word, the good news.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so cool, the different ways that, God has called us as a church to reach out to the world, but also just, you're hearing your story and, knowing that God is bringing people just with all different kinds of backgrounds and, to our city. And it's really amazing how God has moved. And so talk to me a little bit about the missions board and, kind of what has transpired over the last couple of years. How did that happen, actually, that you joined the missions board?
I've always known it was out there. I always knew probably half to 3/4 of people that were on the board. So it seemed like it might have just been a matter of time before they always, every couple of years people transition. Exactly. Every couple of years people transition off the board and they kind of rotate around. And so they're looking for new people, and they approached me because they knew my background. A lot of people, a lot of my friends at church had been on the mission board, and kind of, so I think the exciting part for me has really been getting even more insight, into the missionaries we do support, and getting, building relationships with them a little bit more, hearing more about what they do, where they work, that kind of thing, which I think we can get as a regular church member, but you kind of have to, it takes some effort to reach out and get some of these updates and things. Yeah. And you have to kind of work at it a little bit more. Whereas being part of the mission board, I get, fed that stuff a little bit.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that's exciting is we're going to start having regular emails sent out with mission board updates, things that are going on, and actually going to send some information with this video and an email. If you're not on the email and you're watching on YouTube, we'd love to get you signed up. You can just go to JesusIsTrueHope.com/downtown, and you'll find a sign up on that page. And we're going to be sending out regular updates about what's going on around the world. And part of that, I know, has been conversations around COVID. And, how has that kind of shaped your conversations as a mission board? Yeah, so last year, everything kind of, went upside down, especially with missions and international travel. So a lot of
planned trips were canceled or postponed, or initially postponed and then canceled. And that's still been kind of ongoing, that we've kind of been waiting to figure out, when is it reasonably safe to start traveling internationally again, or when is it, it might be safe in the U.S., but when it might be safer in other countries and that kind of thing, and when are the borders open? So trying to organize that. And then probably more importantly is trying to care for the missionaries we do have in all kinds of parts of the world, and they have kind of varying stages of COVID going on in different parts of the world, and they're struggling with different types of things and different issues, and
it's a worldwide thing.
Yeah, so trying to figure out what do different missionaries need, how can we support them in this time where it's difficult for everyone, and
what do you think we should be praying as those who are here at home?
I think going back to the coronavirus thing again, right? There's, I think, a lot of people, this is making people think, right? That, there's a lot of people dying, right? So a lot of people thinking about what happens after death, right? Where do we go? So I think from that perspective, and also understanding that, we like to think we're in control of this planet or of this country or whatever, right? But something like coronavirus can show up, and all of a sudden you realize we don't have control, right? We're not in control of this whole thing. And I think it's just a very, I guess, fertile soil, right? For people to be asking questions, people to be searching and seeking. And we want those people to, land in the right spot to find the true answers, and not just find something that can kind of band-aid over the, the pain or the confusion or what, the turmoil they're feeling, but to find the real answer.
That light in the darkness.
Yeah, exactly. I think exactly this has brought them into the realization that we are living in this darkness, that we don't really know what's going on. We're not in control. We don't have the hope that we thought we might have had, right? And that there is a light out there, and we want them to find the light. Exactly. And so hopefully, they can connect with a lot of these missionaries we support, or believers around locally in Boise or wherever. It's like you said, it's affecting everyone. So I think it's a huge opportunity for people to learn about God. Yeah,
well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on this. And as soon as we're done here, I think I want you to read me a little bit out of this. That's right. I want to hear this Papua New Guinea. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for another True Hope Weekly. We'll see you next time.